give us a big wave. You know, go ahead in the group chat. Tell us where you're from. We would love to know where you're zooming in from. My name is Catherine, and I am with Michaels, and I am so thrilled to have you all joining us today for this class. This is so exciting. I'm sure y'all are probably just as excited as I am about this. We are doing everything we can to help you, stay creative, keep making, keep creating. We know that times right now are so crazy, so we're just so thankful that we can bring this to you all. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We know that maybe this is your one free hour out of the day away from the kids. So thank you. We are so honored to have you all join us today. If you have any questions during the whole class, please feel free. Go ahead, write them in the chat to everybody. I will do my very best to make sure that they get answered either live or in the chat. If you're taking notes and you miss something, don't worry. This will be recorded and will be posted live, so you can rewatch it as many times as you want. And like I said, we do keep everybody on mute just to help with background noise. So questions, comments, concerns, don't be afraid to put them in the chat. If you have the question, I'm sure someone else does. So there are no stupid questions here. I will do my best to ask them and make sure that they get answered. It looks like we have a really great class today. And without further ado, I am so honored to hand this over to Evil Ted.
Hi guys, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whatever time zone you guys are into. I'm Evil Ted from the Evil Ted channel. I have a YouTube channel and I also have a website by the same name, Evil Ted Smith. If you guys haven't been there, please visit. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be making a foam helmet. Foam helmet is the first video I ever made on YouTube, and it really took off. So many cosplayers are making amazing armor pieces, but we're always like buying helmets, and I always figured that was the missing link, was to make a pattern for a foam helmet. So what we're going to do today is this pattern you guys will be using. This is from my website. You guys can get for free. It's the Paladin helmet from Voltron. I made that a while back, and I had made that pattern available free, so most people can get that pattern. If you want to start out and you're a little intimidated, I want to get people started. So if you get that pattern, that's what we're going to be doing today. So I want to show you some examples really quickly before we start crafting some of the stuff I've done with foam. We're going to start from my favorite helmet, and we're working our way back. Okay, here we go. This is the this is my Red Demon Mongo. This is a foam helmet pattern. And again, these ram horns are from my website. I know people think, how do you carve those out of foam? It's just pattern making. So this is a fun one. I really like this one a lot. But I'm just showing this example of what you can do with foam. And of course,
lots of very impressed people, Ted.
Oh, thank you. And this one is the night helmet. I just recently did a video on this one. This pattern, again, is available on my website at eviltedsmith.com. I have a really good video, and I show you the techniques of how I went about sealing this and painting this. But again, everybody, it's just foam. It's just craft foam. And then the pattern we're going to be using today is the Voltron helmet. This is the Pidge's helmet from Voltron. And why I made this helmet was when the TV show came out, I love the show, but I was going to conventions, and kids were dressed up as Voltron and had the great armor and the characters, but nobody had helmets. I'm like, why you guys don't have helmets? So I made this pattern hoping that when they see this, they'd make a helmet to go with their costume. So that was the reason for that. Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. What we're going to do now is I'm going to temporarily adjust you guys. I'm going to shape the camera a little bit, so I'm going to give you a little head up, guys, so you don't get seasick. I'm going to take the camera off and put it onto my mounting table so we can start crafting. So you guys ready? Here we go.
Woohoo! Lots of excited people.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Hold on. Adjusting the wheel. All right. Oh, guys, adjust this. Get a little tight. All right. Now, I apologize for the whiteness. It's a little bit blown out, guys. But this is the pattern. The pattern consists of 3 pieces. This is the top right here. You guys can see these are the registration marks I've cut out. Now, when I get these patterns, you guys can use paper, but I like to transfer them onto poster board. They're durable and they'll last a lot longer. And this is the top. This is the side. This is the bottom, and this is the top side. So what I went ahead and traced these onto foam. Now, what we use today, guys, this right here, the base of this is 10 millimeter. Michael's foam, and you can see it went ahead and traced it on here. Again, I apologize for the white so blown out. You guys can see it's traced on here. We're going to take our craft knife and we're going to cut these things out. Now the trick to cutting is these pieces we're going to cut out. We're going to make sure they stay at 90-degree angles when we're cutting this out, okay? I'm going to show you how to do this. Is that right now, make sure you guys center here, sorry. Is that when I'm cutting, when the blade's cutting and you watch the blade, the best way to know when you're cutting 90 is the blade stays straight up. What that does when you're cutting, you're able to see your blade. So if you start doing this or drifting, that's what you don't want to do. You want to make sure, that's why always when I cut, I stand up on my workbench and kind of look down on top and make sure my blade stays 90. So again, we're going to cut right on the sharpening line again. So by the way,
sorry, quick question. Do you recommend tracing using pen, marker, or pencil?
Oh, whatever works for you guys. Ballpoint pens are great because, man, foam, it's like for something with ballpoint pens and paper, it struggles, but with foam, ballpoint pens are great. If you guys also can use Sharpies. Sharpies work really well too, but a good old-fashioned ballpoint pen. So again, I just cutting straight up and down. Now, while I'm working, everybody, if anybody has any questions, please, by all means, please ask away. This, that. Another thing too, you guys can see below when I'm cutting, I have a cutting mat. Now you guys can get these at Michael's as well as your craft store, good fashion cutting mats. The self-healing mats, when I was a kid, I would destroy my mom and dad's table all the time. So I realized that you should always get a good cutting mat. This also saves the blade. The blade doesn't get worn out as quickly.
Okay, I got a couple questions for you.
All right, go. I'm ready.
Could you tell us the size of the piece that you're starting with?
Oh, the 10 millimeter?
Yes. Okay.
Yes, it's the basic, yeah, the overall helmet shape pattern I'm using with 10 millimeter foam.
And then do you have to do anything to enlarge the pattern?
No, this pattern I made relatively kind of medium size. If you have a big noggin, like, I have a very small head, so this is, but I designed this helmet to fit most people, so you should not have to worry about that. You don't need to resize it.
Do you have any tips on kind of keeping your blades super sharp? Do you just keep buying new blades? Oh, you do. All right.
I do. Hold on, guys. When I cut, when I cut this piece, I'm concentrating, going around. What I do is that when I cut, it's funny because a blade, you think would stay pretty sharp. You can always cut yourself with it, but cutting foam dulls a blade pretty quickly. So what I do is when it starts to get a little draggy, if it starts to drag on me a little bit, there's a company, Crenshaw, and they make sharpeners. There's a company called Crenshaw. You guys can find these online. It's a sharpening blade. What you do is I'll wet it a little bit with WD-40, and I just take the blade and I very lightly, slight angle, just kind of draw it like this, and it reanimates the blade. It brings it back to life, and it makes such a big difference. So when you're working with foam, it gets expensive after a while replacing blades. And I do have blade replacements, but eventually it's always good just to have you start cutting and you're right in the middle of something, you don't want to pop out and change a blade, just resharpen the blade. All right, we have our pieces. All right, guys, now we have all our pieces cut out. And again, I'll tell you guys really quickly on the patterns, when you're tracing with the patterns, when you get them, that the sides, it's a left, and when you want to do a right, you just flip them. That's one thing great about patterns. It keeps everything symmetrical. So when you get the center, you have, it says left, and when you want to right, you just flip the pattern. Same with the sides. So left, you flip it, make a right. That's how you do that. And for the top, you only need one of those. So now we have all our pieces cut out. Our next step is to glue them together. Now, I have friends out there that work really good with hot glue, and you can, but it takes a little bit, you have to glue things and hold it till it cools. And so that's why I love contact cement. So let me grab my glue pot. Now, I work with a glue pot, but you guys don't have to have a glue pot. You can still use a squeeze bottle. I have a lot of friends that use squeeze bottles, and they're just like, very much like this. You guys get the standard plastic bottle with a cap, and you just put contact cement in there, and you just squeeze out what you need with a glue pod. So what we're going to do to start gluing is that we're going to glue the darts first. So hold on, we'll do that really quickly. So this.
Ted, do you have any brand suggestions on the contact cement?
You know something? I find that most contact cements work pretty well. There's Wellwood. There's a, hold on, what did I just do with that piece? I just dropped something. Oh, guys, I just dropped my, where did that piece? Oh, there it is. Sorry, I got lost. All right, start with this piece. Yeah, just a good, any good. There's a Wellwood. I know in different countries, Australia has, I think Canada has LePage. There's, but yeah, as long as it's a contact adhesive, you guys, you should be all right. Any good store brand. I work with Barge a lot, but I find Barge is kind of expensive and hard to find. So that's why I recommend people to go to any place you can find contact cement. All right, and now we're going to, sorry, drop some pieces here. We're going to apply the glue to our darts first. That's the top of the helmet. I'm going to apply my glue to the inside here, like this. Like that. Now, once I apply this glue, I'm working kind of quickly because it is a contact cement. I take a piece of scrap foam and I come in here with the scrap and I take the glue and I smear it out really nice and even. Now, I do that because it makes the glue, because it's contact, you want to make sure that both surfaces get glued, because sometimes you'll glue things and little holes will pop up or spots you don't see because you miss stuff. So it's always good just to spread out the excess glue. Okay, while that's drying, I'm going to take the two halves of the helmet. Make sure you got my right and my left. I'm going to glue these darts as well too. So again, everybody, please, if you have any questions, ask away.
Oh, here's a great question. Could you comment on transferring those registration marks to the foam?
I'm sorry, what about the trends? I'm sorry,
could you comment on transferring the registration marks to the foam?
What I use when I make my patterns, because you'll see it when you get the patterns, they'll have lines for that. And I have a notch cutter. I'm sorry guys, I usually have it right in front of me. They're really great. You can get those. I'm sure you can get that at Michael's. It's a good old, it's a notch cutter, and it's sold for fabric for cutting patterns, for paper patterns. It cuts a little notch in. Because I used to go back in with a craft knife and cut them out, and then once I discovered the notch cutter. So when you get your patterns, it's all laid out, and where the registration marks are, you have to cut those. And the registration marks on making stuff, everybody, is very important to get onto the foam, because that is it's like putting a puzzle together, and you need those registration marks to line up. And embarrassingly, I'll tell you, I worked in foam for years, but never had registration marks. Never understood. I worked on a commercial with a friend of mine, and we were working with these for a Japanese commercial, and these foam fabricator guys were making foam patterns, and they started doing registration marks. My head about exploded. I'm like, oh my God, that's genius. Why did I not think of that? So again, you learn from working with other people and learning other techniques. All right, great, this is good. So this is drying. So now that's drying, let's go ahead and put this together. Again, everybody, I apologize for the video being blown out. On the registration mark, like to start, when you're gluing these guys together, make sure you start with the top edge first. Now, the why I do that is because that makes sure that you minimize your seams. When people started getting the foam craft and they'd write to me and say, hey, Ted, what can I do about my seams? I said, well, you'll get better over time. The trick is you just gotta, the more you work with the foam, the better you get at it. But you gotta make sure when you're lining up, just keep going and line that top edge first. Making contact, line up, looking good. Got it, get it, got it, here we go. Going. All right, got it. So there, now see how it sees it's inverted? You just take it, bend it back, and there it is. That's the top. Now we do the same thing in the back. Top edge first, slowly, line it up, make sure that registration mark gets on there. Get it, got it, good, all right, there it goes. Pop it back, there we are. Now, get our top pieces, put the darts together.
Here's a couple questions, Ted.
Go.
Would you recommend heat forming your pattern pieces before adhering together?
On some foam, yes. This stuff is, this 10 millimeter, the Michaels 10 millimeter foam is very soft and it curves. Now, if you have some really dense EVA foam, it's a little bit stiff to it, you can. Yeah, some foams I like to, if you're using floor mat foam, the gray floor mat foam you guys can usually get like at Harbor Freight and stuff like that, that's pretty dense stuff. So if you want to do a helmet, I recommend definitely heat curling it first. But this foam is very soft, so it's kind of taking its shape naturally, so we don't really heat it up so much. But that's a great question. All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to start gluing stuff together. So we're going to start with the top here, right here on the helmet. So we're going to apply glue to both these halves. Get that quickly. I want to get it real fast there. Okay, guys. So now, guys, again, the scrap foam, can't recommend this enough. This has always been a little bit of a lifesaver, spraying the glue out. When I got into cosplay, I worked in the movie industry, and I had a lot of, we worked with a lot of materials, you know, fiberglass and clay and sculpting and molding. And the thing that in my industry, that everything we had to do, we had to make to be durable because it had to be molded. And the reason we molded something is because when they're making something for a movie, you always needed more than one. If you're making a costume or a helmet or a gun or a prop, you had to make multiples. You had to have a rubber one, a hero one, a stunt one. And when I got into cosplay, I thought was so great was what stopped me from making stuff is because I worked in the industry, I had access to all these materials and they were very expensive. All the silicone molds and the resin and casting, although I was trained in it and I could work with it really well, it was very expensive. So every time I wanted to make something, I was like, oh, I wish I could get that, but it's just so much money. But when cosplay, you can do the same thing and make a movie quality prop because you don't have to make multiples. You don't have to make it indestructible. You're just making one for yourself. So foam is the way to go. You put all that work into something, and when it's done, you're done. It's finished. You don't have to mold it and cast it. You have it. So that's one thing that really excited me about cosplay, is that you can make anything with this material. It's readily available. It's inexpensive, so you can make any costume or prop from a movie.
Hey, Ted, here's another question for you.
Go.
In regard to the glue, are you letting it dry till it's tacky or are you letting it dry all the way?
I let it dry till it's tacky. I'm in an environment right now where in California it's a little bit drier and warmer here, so it dries a little faster. And I'm also putting it on very, very thin. The thinner the contact cement is, the faster it dries. But it's good to let it dry to a, you kind of apply it and you can touch it, and when it's dry enough to touch and doesn't come off of your fingers, that's when you're pretty much good to go. But also, I only have an hour, so I want to really build this helmet quickly. So I'm working very efficiently to do this as fast as possible. So again, I'm lining this up very carefully. Again, make sure you get those registration marks, line them up. Sometimes they don't want to, and you got to push and pull to make sure they line up. All right, looking good. Do the other side. So again, does anybody have any more questions, guys? Anything about crafting, making, gluing? I just recently I got a letter from somebody, and they were writing to me about like making their helmet, and they were really concerned about the size and how it's going to fit and everything. And I said, have you made it yet? And he said, well, no. I said, well, how do you know it's not going to fit until you make it? And everybody has this obsession with when they make something, they want it to be right the first time. And I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. Nothing's right the first time. Every time I make something, I've always struggled, and it takes a couple times to try it. And there's a costume piece I'm making right now. I have a Space Marine helmet, a Space Marine costume I did for BlizzCon years back, and I'm working on that pattern to make it available in my store. And I discovered that this pattern, I kind of freehanded, I made it myself. And so to make this available, I wanted to do some work on it. And I realized in making it, to get it right, I had to make the helmet like 3 times. So every time you think you're gonna get something, even experienced as I am, it takes a couple times to get something to where you like it's right. If you're making your own costume, it's kind of fun because you can organically make something up as you go, kind of like what we're doing with this helmet today. But if you're trying to make something from a movie or from a video game, and you make it and you realize it's not quite there yet, don't beat yourself up. Just stop and think about what you want to do differently and do it again. That's why I always tell people it's always good to get like really inexpensive like floor mat foam or cheap foam and experiment with your pattern first. I just totally forgot to put glue here first. Hold on, guys. All right.
Ted, people are just, they cannot stop saying such great things about all of the videos and how much they have learned from you. So I definitely think that you'll need to come back and do more classes with us. Awesome.
Well, what I would tell people too really quickly is that my mission when I first started in the video was there were so many people when I started doing Twitch. I started doing Twitch stream. If you guys anybody knows Twitch, I stream. My account is twitch.tv/EvilTedSmith. I stream every other Monday and Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. When I started stream, I had fellow cosplayers and people I really admired. I'd watch, and I'd come in and start talking to them, and they'd say, "Well, I don't really build that because I'm not that good, or I'd rather get somebody else to build something for me." And I kept thinking, it's not that you can't build something; you choose not to build something. But there's no such thing as can't. It's just that you're afraid of the outcome, so you don't do it. And I've always found that that's my mission is I want to really take the intimidation, because I think once you see somebody make something, once you watch it, it's like a magic trick. Once you see how the magic trick is done, you're like, oh, I can do that. And it's the same with cosplay and building. That's why when I make the videos, I try to show people, you see the finished product and it's intimidating, but if you watch how I make it, it's actually doable. And that's been my mission, because we used to make a lot of stuff and people just want to buy stuff now. I'm like, no, you can actually make that. So we're lining up here on this side. But everybody out there, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the fan base and the YouTube audience, because you guys saved me, because I worked in the movie industry for almost 30 years that is, and it was fun, but like anything, it became a job and it became tough. And it became a point where I worked a lot and long hours and hard days with virtually no satisfaction, or not a pat on the back or a good job. They just would take it away and yell at you for being late. So it kind of like took the fun of it for me. And the one thing I would do when I come home was not make something. And then when I discovered the cosplay community and the fellowship and the sharing and then the building and people sharing their costumes and the excitement and making things you want to make, opposed to making something that somebody else wants to make you make. And then, so that's what kind of got me back into cosplay. Okay, guys, now we got, this is the top of the helmet is done. There it is.
Ooh, looks great.
Now we're going to go ahead and apply the side pieces again. Now what we're going to do with this one is that on these side pieces, real quick guys, let's set this aside. I like to glue these together first. This is the pattern. So I just want to make this as one piece. So let's go and do that real quick. It makes it a lot easier to glue on when it's one piece. So apply a little cement. But again, yeah, I just want to thank the community, because you making stuff fun again, and it really is. And that's what I started when I was 14 years old. I saw Star Wars, and I always made things, but that movie just made me realize that I had to make that. I have to have that. It's like, and at the time you couldn't buy that stuff. You just had to make it. So that's the thing. And I love it that everybody's now Overwatch, that game. When I would go to conventions and go to Blizzard, I'd see these kids walking around, these amazing, elaborate Blizzard characters. And I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I get somewhat intimidated because I know everybody gives me a lot of credit, but I'm just a guy that shows you, I make a roadmap. That's kind of like what I do, is I give you guys a roadmap to show you where to go. And then what you do on your journey is up to you. And some of the stuff that people do, I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. The detail work people put into stuff. It's wonderful.
Hey, Ted, is contact cement forgiving, like if you've made a mistake?
Here's the thing. Once it sticks, it sticks. When you mean by forgiving, the best thing to do is if you are working with a brand of cement, is always have a jar of thinner. And I do have mine right here. Oops, sorry. Well, it's empty right now, but I have this. have a glue thinner right here. So what I do sometimes, whatever contact cement you're working with, make sure you find a solvent, because sometimes over time the contact cement will get thicker and it's hard to work with. So you always have a solvent to add to it. But I usually have a squeeze bottle. So therefore, if I do something incorrectly, I take a little squeeze bottle and drop it and it pops right back off. But yeah, once you stick it when it's dry, if you try to manually pull it, it'll tear the foam. That's how strong contact cement is. A good question. All right, here we go. We're going to start gluing this side on. The bottom, that is. Does anybody have any questions? Please, guys, I love answering questions. If anybody has questions, now is the time. If you guys aren't familiar with my website, if you ever go to, you'll find that I have like old school stuff in there. I have, there's things from movies I really like. I'm a big fan of Aliens, that is both of them, the first and the sequel. And I was so obsessed because I love the pulse rifle from the movie. And when I looked online, it turned out that nobody had patterns, or nobody made made patterns for that gun. So I went ahead and made patterns available for the flamethrower and the pulse rifle. And on my list, I eventually want to make a Colonial Marine costume too, but that's down the road. Okay.
Here's a question for you. How can you determine the thickness of EVA foam before starting your project, like in the stage?
Fantastic. That's a great question. It always depends on what you're doing. For example, if you're making armor, I've always found that armor costumes, always like an armor piece or chest piece or helmet, it's always good to either do 1/2 inch or 10 mil for the overall, if you're doing something armor. Now, if you want to do something very cool and very low profile, I would go like 8 mil. You can go from like 8 to 6. Now that's if you want to do something very low profile, kind of like for example, people like make Iron Man costumes, making Iron Man the chest piece and the helmet you would do out of like 1/2 inch or 10. But for like the lower parts below the armor, like his midsection and the joints between the arms, like his waist and his joints between his legs, I would do that out of a thinner foam. I do like 6 and then 4, do thinner foam. It's always that thing, but just the thicker stuff, the more durable stuff, you want to go a little thicker. But again, it all depends on what you're making, pretty much. All right, guys. This is got these two. Now, normally, let me get a hair dryer. So sometimes when I'm working, I like to speed things up a little bit. So I use a hair dryer. I just recently got an email from a fan, and they were asking me like when I was going to come to like Scotland, and I said, I love going to conventions, but I always tell people, my fan base, like, if you guys want me to come to your local con, write to your con and let them know that you want me there. I always tell people, like, because I know that you guys know me, but most conventions really don't know who I am, because in the cosplay world, I'm one of many. So if people want to know, you just got to let them know that you would like to have me come out and visit sometime. Because I love going to conventions. Granted, I can't travel right now for this year because of the pandemic and all, but once things start clearing up, I'd love to get back out there again. All right, guys, now here we go. We're gonna line up the back half. As you can see, I like to start with the back of the seam because I know for exact, this is the back of the helmet, this is the center seam, this is the center seam of the lower half. So make sure they line up first. So I touch those two first. And again, now I just line up these edges so they wrap around very slowly. How are we doing on time right now?
So you have another 30 minutes left.
Fantastic. Okay, good.
Yep, we're doing great. Just a couple people have asked if they'll be able to view this again. And yes, absolutely. If you want to rewatch this or you missed a couple of steps, this is being recorded. So we will post this at michaels.com/classes. So you'll be able to view it probably in the next couple of days. So don't worry about that. And another great question that I'm really interested in knowing, Ted, is like, what is your dream cosplay?
It's always, it's funny because I have a couple. It's kind of funny. For the longest time, it was Vampire Hunter D. I loved the anime. I saw the anime when I moved out to California, and Vampire Hunter D was animated from the 80s, and they remade it, and it was Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. And the designs, there's a Japanese designer who does costumes for like live action TV shows and stuff, and they brought him on to design the characters, and they revamped D's costume. And he had this kind of cool black armor, and I just loved the character. And for years, I always wanted to do it, but I was at the time when I was working in the movie industry, I kept thinking sculpting and fiberglass and mold making. I realized it's just like, I'm not gonna be able to afford to do it until I have money. And as I got into cosplay, I'm like, wait a minute, I can make it out of foam. So I did D as one of them. And then my second costume I want to make is a still suit from the movie Dune, the 1980s movie Dune. The Fremen, these guys had these like things called still suits, and I love those things. I eventually want to make one. All right, guys, here is right now is the basic shape of the helmet we have. Now this is again is all 10 millimeter. So what I did ahead of time was, what's aside for now, is that I took the patterns, as you guys can see here, this is the pattern of the helmets and stuff. This is the side, we have the top and the side. So I went ahead and went back in and traced to make little detail patterns. So this is going to be our detail we're going to do out of 6 millimeter. We're switching to 6 now. And did I cut those pieces?
Another question, kind of in regard to the painting process, is there a primer that you would use to make sure the spray paint won't eat through the foam?
Oh, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, spray paint, do not spray paint. If you guys are going to spray paint something, use acrylic paints. If you're going to paint your foam or paint it, you stick with acrylic. Spray paint does just that. It does eat foam, and it'll attack your glue as well too. So stay away from spray enamel and foam, because what is happening is the spray enamel dries, and it dries hard. So when your foam flexes, it just cracks off. So spray paint is not the way. Stay away from the spray paint on enamel on foam. All right, that's a good question. Yes, by all means, yeah. Do not use enamel paint on spray foam, on foam. What I like to usually do, you guys can seal things with Plasti Dip. You could also, guys, use classic Mod Podge. You can definitely use that to seal foam with. There's different things I use. I have our Natural 6. It's a rubber compound I use, but it's for molding. It's a little expensive, but you also use Creature Cast. But if you guys are novice, you're starting off, I'd highly recommend when you're done with your costume, very gently just brushing. You can use PVA glue or Mod Podge. And once you seal it, the acrylic paint sticks so well to this too. All right, we have some 6 millimeter detail we're going to add to the helmet, and I'm going to show you guys really quickly here. Here's a piece for the detail. You guys can see these holes. Sorry, you see the holes here. They're super clean. And how I did those is I traced them with my pattern, and I have a brass tube I have right here that I sharpen the edge a little bit, and we'll line up real quickly and cut. Oh. Yeah, but sealing foam is always tricky when you start off in the cosplay thing. Is just like, start with using just Mod Podge or PVA glue, and people like use Plasti Dip. The one thing with Plasti Dip, I'll tell you, is that you definitely want to warm it up first before you spray it. And what I mean by that is you can take your Plasti Dip and get a bucket and put some hot tap water in it. Don't boil it, just straight hot tap water, and put your Plasti Dip in there. Put like a brick or a rock on top of the can, so it keep it underwater for at least 10 minutes. And you'll find the Plasti Dip comes out a lot smoother and cleaner. Because sometimes when you're spraying plastic, it gets chunky and spits and leaves little textures on your nice clean foam work. There we go. Okay. Where's my X-Acto blade? Got that. All right, guys. This is now. So these are the 6 millimeter detail pieces I have right here. This is for the sides and for the top right here. So we're going to apply glue to these guys. I'll show you. Hold it to the side for now. I got 30 minutes. Here you go. Again,
You've got this.
Huh?
You've got this.
Okay. This is where the glue brush comes in handy. This is where it comes in handy to have a brush. We're a little faster. What we're doing right now is we're going to add some detail. This is, again, when you have the pattern, it's just so going to take the pattern and you trace it out. Then when you trace it out, you can use your pattern to come up with different ideas and designs you want to do. And that's what I kind of did with this guy this morning. I kind of got up and thought, well, we could make this helmet, but let's make something a little bit different. Let's have fun, try to add to it, make it a little bit different. Set this aside.
Ted, do you have any advice for kind of the best way to clean wayward glue?
Wayward glue?
Just the glue. Yeah.
You mean like the strands and things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always use that with, that's why I have the foam scraps. I have this little cup of foam scraps. So if anything gets away from me or a big goop, instead of using my finger, I just grab a piece of foam scrap and just go and wipe it. So that's kind of like what you do. It's like, because glue, you're right. When you're especially brushing stuff everywhere, it does have a tendency to get everywhere. So I just have a cup of foam scraps, which is funny. During the stream, I just knocked it over. So it's usually full, but half it's on the floor right now. So, all right. But that's a good question. I love it, guys. Please, more. Give me more questions. This is great. Anybody have any questions?
Let's see, I think we've gotten most of them. I have a question for everybody who is viewing. Have y'all ever used a Cricut machine for any of your cosplay pieces? I know I talked about this earlier. I'm just curious to see.
Yeah, I just discovered a Cricut not too long. My friend Beverly Dowling, who's a great cosplayer, and she uses the Cricut all the time, making her patterns and fabrics. And see, oops, okay.
Here's a question. Does scaling down from life size work?
Oh, I mean, making something smaller?
I'm assuming so, yes.
Yeah, that's always, it's in the wonderful world of just copying. Like, people always want something bigger. I always find making something smaller is a lot easier. You just take the pattern itself and just take it to a copy store and just shrink it. On how, and the percentage, people always ask, like, what percentage to shrink things. I always tell people that everybody's body is different, so it's depending on the size, but it's all trial and error. It's really kind of hard to tell until you have it on or build it. So I don't really know what, how to make something fit until you pretty much have it on you. All right, guys, really quickly, we got this top piece right here, the trim. This is our 6mm detail piece on the top of the helmet we're gonna add, like so. I'm gonna drop it right here. And again, I use the center when I'm lining this thing up, so I know I fall center. Is using that seam line right down the middle. So I make sure it falls exactly where I want to. Okay, going. All right, pow. Now it's on there. I come back here, push it down on the edges. Good contact. There. All right, let's decide now. We're going to plot this guy out. We have to stick this piece goes, hold on, goes about here. See, it's my detail piece we're going to add to it. Again, everybody, I'm so sorry. It's so blown out because of the white. I apologize. I don't know. It's cameras, video cameras in white. Okay, so we got that. But yeah, patterns on my website. That's why I have two versions. I have a PDF version where you can buy the pattern, you can download it into a PDF file, you can print it on your home computer. But I also have them in plotter file too. And plotter file means it's just a giant sheet, and you can put it on a travel drive and go to your local copy store, and they'll print it to size, so you can have it there. And when doing that, that's where you can have things brought, shrink it or blow it up by a certain percentage. You can do whatever, but sizing.
Here's a question, Ted. How do you kind of plan for and place EL lighting to your helmets and armor, especially for the helmet? Where would you hide the battery pack?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely am very new to electronics. I'm trying to get into it more. I bought Kamui's book on it, and also there's some websites that have like electronics. That's one thing you have to kind of put in mind when you're building something, that if you know ahead of time if you're gonna put a light on there. I sometimes will cut a notch. It depends on what you're gonna use. If it's AA or 9-volt batteries, Then there's those little small, like little nickel batteries. There's all different types of ways of lighting stuff, but you always have to understand that if you're going to do that, you might want to incorporate something in the design to hide a battery. Cosplay, it's pretty simple and easy because most armor is big and bulky, and you can hide batteries all inside your costume. It's like, I've seen plenty of my friends do amazing lighting, like Kamui does all these crazy light up stuff, and she hides her lighting inside the armor itself. But yeah, it's one of the things where if you're going to make a helmet, you know it's going to light, find out what kind of batteries you're going to use and compensate for that in your design. Like a 9-volt, if you want to cut a hole in the back for the 9-volt or something like that, or make a spot a little bit thicker in your design to hide the battery. But that would be my suggestion. All right, I'm going to stick this detail on. Here we go. Right, wrap it around. That's a good question. Thank you. Good question. All right. Any more questions?
Here's a question, kind of a behind the scenes question. What is your setup for streaming and recording your builds?
Oh, I do. I have a nice little, it's a Canon Sure Shot, I think it's called. It's a small camera. I use those, and I'll shoot those and record the audio separately. But sometimes when I'm doing my videos, a good portion of my videos are edited down for my live streams too. When I stream on Twitch, I have a tendency, I do it on OBS and I record it to my computer and I just download that from my computer sometimes. But there's many different ways to do it. But that's the 2 ways that I do. I have a camera I shoot sometimes. Like when I did the War Axe video, I just recently did a video on a axe prop I built, and I shot that with my Canon Sure Shot camera, and then went back later and then added the audio to it. All right, guys, we're getting close. This is now that. We have, we're gonna add some signal detail to this guy. Tell you what, let's see, I'll tell you what, let's skip this. How much time we have?
It is 3:42, little more than 15 minutes.
All right, here we go. Well, in that case, we're gonna bypass the side detail. We're gonna jump on the 2mm. I have some 2mm parts real quickly here. Now, again, it's just adding detail to your helmet, just doing things with layers is always fun. So we're gonna do this real quick. Again, I'm just doing a real thin coat of contact cement. Brush a little bit on the front. This is just, I always find when adding something, especially costume stuff, it's not sculptural, it's just stacking and layering and pattern making. It's just like getting the most out of this stuff. And that's what's so great about the foam is that when you get foam, it's good to get so many different various thicknesses that you guys can pick up and get different thicknesses that add layers and layers to foam. And 2mm foam is one of my all-time favorites. It's the best to add for detail and all kind of little nuances. Because 2mm you don't think is that thick until you stick it on something. It really does show up and does look great. All right.
Ted, there's a question, and I apologize. I'm probably going to absolutely butcher this word. Ellen, I'm very sorry. I'm just asking if you have a pattern for a fire gene helmet.
No, I do not. But I always tell people when they ask for patterns, there's certain things I have in my shop. I do have a lot of basic patterns, a lot of generic things you can buy, that you can go and modify yourself. But I always try to tell people that there's certain things that I know that I build that I like. But the key is you get in the community and start shopping around and looking. There's lots of great things on Facebook and groups and things. But if there's no pattern out there, I tell you, you should be the one to make it. Like if you're sitting there and you have something you're really passionate about and you want to make it, don't wait for somebody else to make it. You should make it. And granted, I know you're intimidated and it's not gonna look perfect, but once you do it and you figure it out, the more you work on, the better you get. Oh yeah, add this piece. There's a gentleman, I won't forget, there's a guy who loved this Japanese show called The Knights or something. It was a live action show, I think Saban produced. It was on Saturday mornings, and he wanted this particular costume. He kept telling me, hey, will you build this costume for me? He kept showing me these amazing pictures. And I kept telling him, like, well, I won't build this for you, but you could build this. And he's kept going on and on about how he wanted to get somebody to build this costume for him. And he was going in about the nuances and the detail. And I finally told him, I said, dude, no one's going to put the work in that you will. The missing link to this thing, nobody knows the costume. And even if somebody did build it for you, you'd be unhappy because he won't do it with the passion that you have. That's the thing. Passion overrides talent. If you really want to make something that bad, then you can do it, because no one's going to work as hard on that costume or put the love and detail into it that you're going to put into it. thinking you're going to hire somebody that's going to do it with that kind of passion, they're not. It has to be you. All right, guys, I tell you what, look at that. I say that helmet's done.
That is so awesome.
As a matter of fact, let's do one thing better. Let's put it on my head. Hold on, I'm going to switch cameras around, guys, real quick. Stand by. And chaos. With microphone. There you go. All right, guys, you ready for the magic moment? Here, let's do it. Now, again, I kept this pretty loose. If you guys are building a helmet and you say, hey, I bought like a night helmet or any other helmet you build, and that does this to you, the best thing to do is go out and get that nice upholstery foam with a soft foam. You can cut like little strips. You can cut a strip in here and have a strip go from the front to the back and a little piece of the side. So therefore, it kind of floats like a real helmet does. Like there's padding in helmets. Now, like the knights, those poor guys, they put metal helmets in their heads that rattle around. But you can always do that, or you can make it smaller and make it tailored fit to your head. But there it is, everybody. There's our helmet. We did that in what, 45 minutes?
That is incredibly impressive, Ted.
There you go. But that is, guys, that is the helmet. And the video does not, for some reason, like white. Real quickly, guys, thank you, everybody, for hanging out today and coming by and watching this. If you guys want to know where to follow me, you can go to my website, eviltedsmith.com. I have numerous patterns, but also while you're there, please get on my mailing list, and I'll tell you what's going on today. Matter of fact, if you were on this website, if you're on my site, I would tell you about this. I told all my fans who are on my mailing list, I was doing this today. The other thing too is I'm on Instagram at evilted_channel. I'm on Twitter at evilted40, and I'm on Facebook, of course, as just evilted. But a great way to reach me, guys, is also on my website. But don't forget, everybody, I do stream on Twitch TV or twitch.tv/eviltedsmith every other Monday and Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I do kind of like what we did today here. And what's fun about that is that, sorry, I adjust this camera, guys, is that people write to me and I get emails all the time of asking questions, and it's fun. And trust me, I do my best. I try to get to my my family. I do it once a week. I sit down every day, once a week, and I go through all my emails. I write people back. It takes a little bit of time, but it's just me. So be patient. And I always tell people the best way to get an answer to your question quickly is to either come to one of my live streams or you go to my Facebook group. I have a Facebook group called the Evil Ted's Foam Fanatics. And the Evil Ted Foam Fanatics is just a great group of fellow makers like myself who are all amazing builders, and they share techniques. So if you had an answer to a question and you need an answer right away and you're right in the middle of building something, the best thing is to post there, because there's tons of people who are just experienced. They can answer that question for you quickly. So I always try to get to them, but sometimes people are like, hey, I'm building this costume. It needs to be done by tomorrow. I'm always like, and of course I look at the date. I'm answering like 6 days ago. So obviously missed the deadline for his answer. But again, everybody, it's a great forum. And when you join the website, I'll ask 2 questions is, how'd you find out about me and why you want to join? And that's it. I just do that because it cuts down the bots and stuff. Fake people.
There is another question. We have a couple minutes, so let me just try and
Yes.
shift over to you. For the visor, what did you use?
Oh, that's a great question. This visor on this particular helmet, this is the helmet here on the visor. There's 2, is he referring to the visor for this helmet, right? I'm sure probably it is.
Yeah.
This is a skydiving visor. It's from a company called Shooting Star. Shooting Star, I'm eventually going to do a video. I've been trying to reach out to them, and I wanted them to sponsor me. Like, hey guys, I'm going to do this video with your visors. You should sponsor me. But it is a skydiving visor, and the company is called Shooting Star, but it's spelled CH. So don't use SH. It's CH. Shooting Star. It's a skydiving company, and they have various visors. And when I made my video, they sold 3 colors: yellow, pink, and clear, and that was it. Now when you go to the website, there's multiple colors. So if you want to do a page helmet, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to dye it blue like I did on this one. You can actually buy it blue. They sell them in different colors, and they're roughly about $30. And they're beautiful. So yeah, they're great visors. But that's,
There was another question about, do you have a glue that you would recommend if you're going to be gluing kind of fabric to the outside of the foam, or rhinestones, a mohawk?
right. Fabric is always tricky, but I found that sprayed, when you're doing fabric or pulling fabric over stuff, spray adhesive is pretty good. There's Spray 90, is a 3M product. But what you want to do though, is that you want to spray, like if you have a chest piece or armor piece, you'd spray 90 the surface of the foam, and or you also can use Super 77. But they have a tendency to, they're really good spray glues, but you want to spray it, let it, much like contact adhesive, let it dry a little bit, and when you stretch it on, it'll grab. But for the edges, when you roll the fabric back on the backside, and you want to trim it, I would use contact cement to glue the fabric to foam. Contact cement's a great way to go, but when you have large areas, it gets expensive trying to cover that much contact cement over something that large. So spray glue is great. Super 77 and Spray 90. Look into you might want to look at the companies, but 3M makes a great bunch of spray adhesives. So look in and see what they say about that too. Is really great, because there's some cosplayers that work with fabric that cover things with vinyl and fabric, and I still want to learn about that. I've not done that yet. I'm mostly just, I seal and paint a lot of stuff. I haven't even done a lot of fabric work. But great question.
Another one that came through for someone new, I know you definitely encourage them to make this pattern if it doesn't exist, which is awesome. For someone new to pattern making, like, how do you even just go about that? How do you get yourself kicked off, essentially?
What I used to do is, a lot of my friends, is people sculpt with aluminum foil. I've seen people make foil balls and things. And what I usually do is, I made an early video about how to make a foam helmet. And one thing I did in the video is kind of funny, but I had some friends help me, is you make a pattern up your own head. You basically get a friend you can trust, and you make sure you put like Reynolds wrap or plastic, use Reynolds wrap on your head, or wrap your head in saran wrap, and then pieces of duct tape, and make yourself a pattern, and then you slip it off, and then make a pattern from that. You get that shape, and then in the video I talk about where to find the lines. So definitely, if you guys check out that video on how to make a foam helmet, I go into about pattern making on that. So it's just making that first pattern, and go to my website, get that free helmet pattern. And I always tell people, the reason I made this free is that once you take a flat piece of foam and you trace it and cut it and you put it together, and it can't be, watching a video is one thing, but doing it yourself, actually physically doing it and cutting and gluing, it helps you open your mind to, like, oh, wait a minute, this works. And if I add this to this or take this away from that, that's how it gets you started. So my best recommendation is just get the free pattern and just make that helmet and start with that. And once it opens your door to pattern making, it's like, you just got to get over that fear of making something. And I always think watching, one thing is, you've got to do it with your hands. You've got to get your hands dirty and do something. That's how you get started. And, it was
And another question did come through. I know we have a couple of minutes. When would you use a Dremel tool for the armor helmet?
Oh my God, I love my Dremel tool. Matter of fact, I was going to use it, but I realized it's going to cut down on our time, so I didn't use it. But I have the Dremels are great for grinding, softening edges. For example, this helmet is a sci-fi helmet, so it's all hard edge. So it's actually okay, it's hard edge. But if you're making something like armor or something a little more organic or something worn, you want to take a rotary tool and a stone bit and soften the edges. That's great for that. There's also a great little trick with sanding drums. I have a video on how to add detail to foam. You go to my Evil Ted channel on YouTube. I have videos on how to take the rotary tool and turn on high speed, just make impressions. So the rotary, I actually recommend the rotary tool is almost like, it's number 2. It's like box cutter is number 1 and number 2 is a rotary tool. Because once you get into crafting, you don't want to use a rotary tool. Cutting mat, sharpening blades, and a rotary tool. Because once you get it, you're gonna say, how did I live this long without it? Rotary tool is the stuff to have. It's the best. It's a great tool. Guys, go to your local Michael's store. I'm sure they sell them. Rotary tools.
That we do.
Oh, really quickly too, guys. You guys are talking about sealing your foam up. I talked about Mod Podge, Flexi Paint, Flex Paint, FX Paint. This stuff I just recently did on a video. This stuff's great. I've experimented brushing this onto raw foam, and it really soaks in and it bites pretty well. So if you want to cut corners, or if you're in a rush for a convention, you make something, you have no time to seal it, you can brush foam right on top of it. This stuff is really flexible, really impressive. And you guys also, I think you saw this at Michael's, correct?
Yes, we do, and we should be bringing in even more colors. So we are definitely working very hard with all of you, Ted, with the experts to bring you what you need. So we are very excited to be getting into this world and being here to help you continue to make even for this. So this is just so exciting.
Oh, did somebody ask a question about an airbrush?
Yes. They are just asking, when you make stuff, do you use an airbrush?
Yes, I love an airbrush. That was the thing. It's interesting that, guys, again, go to my website, eviltedsmith.com. I'm in the process of updating my shopping list. So everybody who's on my website, please be patient. My supply list is really outdated. So I'm in the process of updating it right now. I just sent everything to my web guide. He's going to update the web stuff. But I have links for my favorite airbrush, my favorite rotary tools, all that stuff. Airbrushing is great. But the one thing with effects paints, this is brush. This is for brush. This is for brushing. And like I said in the video, I worked out of my comfort zone because I love airbrushing everything. But this stuff is designed for brush. So if you guys are novice and you're starting off and you only use brushes, this stuff's the best. I recommend it using a soft bristle brush and do multiple thin coats. The metallics are impressive. You just do a lot of thin coats, and it's really good stuff. But yeah, so people don't have an airbrush. That stuff's designed to work with a paintbrush.
Here's another question. When you're cleaning the seams or applying caulking, what type of Dremel bit do you use to clean the seam?
I use a stone bit. A sanding drum is great for removing. If you want to make take the corners down fast and quickly, a sanding drum will do it, but it leaves a lot of grooves to it. So stone bits, there's various stone bits, just little stone bits. I think you grab some real quick. That's and with the seams, if they're uneven, like you said, if you overlap a little bit, you can definitely go over it with a stone bit, but then go back in and you go with quick seal. And also, I'm really pumped up the rapid fill. They have stuff called rapid fill now. It's great. But yeah, like this. There you go. So, looks like a little stone bit right here. See that guy?
Yeah.
I got this one. I got that one. I got like little rounded ones. These are great to have. And what's so funny is I used to burn through, when you grind with wood and plastic or metal, they wear down. But I've had these for years because all I'm doing is using foam. So they don't wear down. So if you buy a stone set, guys, you won't have to buy another one. You'll be set.
Do you have to prime before using the Plaid FX paint?
It depends on what you're doing. In the sense of like, on my video I primed everything. I'm a big fan of just sealing my foam first. And what I do on, if you guys want to, I would definitely seal it with like Mod Podge or something. Do that first. And what that does, it prevents the paint from soaking in. Sometimes people, if you want it to soak in, it does stick a little bit better. But it eats up a lot of your paint too. So it's just good to seal something. Want to heat seal your foam so it closes the cells. And that's always, you always want to do that before you paint anything, is take the heat gun to your foam pieces. Even like with this helmet, when I was all done, I would definitely want to go back over the heat gun. And what that does, it makes the foam melt and it closes up the pores. So when you paint, it doesn't soak in. It just kind of goes on top of the surface. But it makes it nice and even. So that's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, so one more question and then we will wrap this up.
Right.
Have you ever used paper mache over the foam base?
No. In the beginning, people used to ask me about using paper mache or Bondo, and I always tell people anything that's rigid will crack over time. Foam is foam, and you know what? That's what's great about foam, is that when it's foam, it's durable, it's flexible. Like I've had this helmet forever and dropped it and kicked it around and it flexes. And the idea it flexes is a benefit because it doesn't beat, crack, or scratch. But if you start putting something rigid on top of foam, once it flexes, it's going to crack and pop off. So on paper mache, Bondo, resins, anything you put in there, it's going to crack off. I used to get a lot of people in the beginning of my YouTube career that say, "Hi, I want to coat this whole thing with resin." I said, well, if you do that, the resin's going to attack the foam and eat the glue, and it's going to fall apart. And it's also going to crack like an eggshell. It's like, it's going to have a thin, hard shell, and as soon as it flexes, it's going to crack. So.
Yeah. All right, so we are basically out of time. Hopefully we got your questions answered. If we didn't, obviously reach out to Evil Ted, people at Michaels. We, follow everyone on Facebook, join the groups. This is such a great community, so everyone is going to be incredibly helpful. Keep your out. We are always adding more classes every day. Keep your eyes peeled, michaels.com/online classes. And just thank you all again for spending this hour with us. Thank you, Ted. Thank you so much for teaching. You have so many fans and so many great comments coming through for you. So keep up what you're doing. We will bring you back as much as we can. And we hope everybody has a great day. And if you don't see one of us before then, have a really great, safe, long weekend.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for continuous support. Thank you.
Thank you.